This is the first video in a two-part series on Formstack Workflows. We're really lucky to have a Formstack Workflows genius join us for the call. So Kate, in this video, is going to walk us through at a high level what workflows are, how we can use them, and talk about some really interesting use cases to help streamline your processes at your company. So let's dive in. Hi, I'm Kyle, the creator of No Code Collab, a site with tips, tricks, and tutorials for your next no-code project. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and head over to our website where we have code snippets and other resources to help you during your no-code builds. Also want to give a special shout out and big thank you to the Formstack team. They have donated their time generously for this video so that everyone can get a better idea of what workflows are and how we can best use them in our own processes. So I'm here with Kate from Formstack. Kate is an account manager and a Formstack Workflows kind of genius, and she's going to walk us through how to involve multiple people in your workflows and how to kind of incorporate more people from around the organization and make this not such a one-dimensional form that people are filling out. So I'm going to pass it over to Kate, who's going to walk us through everything, and we'll take a look at workflows in Formstack.
Awesome. Excited to show you this. The cool thing about workflows, like you just said, Kyle, is that it is going to help make a lot of processes that seem complicated much, much easier. The way that we see workflows really mainly utilized is when information needs to flow through to a few different people, but it might need to hit certain steps in a certain order. That's where we see workflows become very, very useful. And so the workflow that I'm going to walk through with you today is actually for new employee onboarding. So we see that utilized a lot as one of our biggest use cases, where you have a new employee, they need to fill out some information. That employee will go in, fill out all of their information. Then maybe it needs to go to a manager to say, hey, everything's gone through. I've noted that all of their information is correct. And then after that, maybe it needs to go to an IT person to actually set up emails and order materials, or it needs to go to the HR to confirm something. So we see that as kind of a linear process that can get kind of complicated without workflows. So that's kind of the example I'm going to be showing today. So for example, we have this form here. This is going to be as if I'm a new employee, going to work at, say a company like Formstack, and I need to fill out all this information so that the HR department can then, create emails, etc. So I would go through here, and I'm actually going to be able to go in and fill out all of this information that's here. We even have the ability to upload files. So for example, if you want, pictures being uploaded, anything like that, you can have some free open-ended information here. And the way I have set up this workflow is on the first step of the workflow, it is going to go to the person who is the manager of this employee. So for example, I can have this hard-coded to go to a certain employee, but for this, the manager of this actual employee is going to need the one, doing the next step in this workflow. So I have this workflow set up, and I can show you later in the back end. But basically, when this employee is filling it out, they're going to be able to go through here and select who their possible manager is. And then when this information is selected, it's only going to go to that manager. That way, Beyonce, she's very busy. She does not need to deal with people who are not going to be reporting to her directly. So that way they will go and only be responsible for people that they're managing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So all of these people who are on the list here, are they all Formstack users, or can these be people outside of Formstack?
Great question. So for this, because this next step in the workflow, they are going to need to be a Formstack user. They can just be a participant user though, and that's just so that in the back end they can go in and know and actually fill in information that's needed in the form. However, anyone can fill out this first step of the form. They do not need to be a user to fill out this first step of the form.
Okay, so it's almost, I think what's going to happen here is you're going to submit this, and that's going to trigger another step. And in order for someone to be the recipient of that next step in the workflow, they need to be a user.
Exactly.
That's what, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You've got it.
Cool.
So in this situation, I'm going to say that the manager is myself. And then I will show you what that looks like as the next person in this workflow step. So all of this information has been selected, and I'm going to go ahead and, as this new employee, submit the form. So that is going to go through. And the great thing here is this message can actually be customized. So it can say like, hey, someone will be contacting you within 24 hours. So that way, as a new employee, I know what to look out for as my next step. There's no confusion, and I can know, hey, within 24 to 48 hours, I'm going to be contacted. So this step is really customizable and kind of a nice little add-on.
And you could probably at this point as well trigger another, like trigger a zap or trigger some other workflow to kick off if you wanted to send a welcome email or something that
Absolutely.
was out. Okay, cool. So this really, I mean, total flexibility, because the form has been submitted, which is a trigger, and now we can take this any number of places, including workflows.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And yes, you can have it fully customized to basically do whatever it is that you'd like as this next step for that new employee.
Great.
So from here now, since this form has been submitted, kind of like you said, on the back end now, it is actually now going to the next person in the workflow. And you're actually going to get an email as the next person in the workflow when you have a task assigned to you. So on the back end now, it has said that Kate Webb, her email is linked to it. And now it's actually going to send me over an email, which I will show you here shortly. So if I now go into my email, I will see here that I have a new step in the workflow demo, and it has been assigned to me. So as this manager now, I'm going to say, oh, look, my new employee that I just hired, they've submitted their stuff. So now it's my turn to make sure that I go in and complete the next step. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Visit Workspace to complete task. And now it's going to take me into our workflow internally. And now I'm able, from the manager perspective, to go in and I can now see the section that the new employee has already completed. So I can go in and see this information, but I have it set so I can't actually edit anything. I will only be able to see it. That is a setting that you can have set within the workflow, which I can talk about in a little bit, to be able to edit or just view the information. For this,
in case they misspell, they might have misspelled. So, okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly. In case there's a misspelling, something like that, you can have the ability to edit. But if for some reason you want to lock that information, it can also be locked as well. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to view all of the information that my employee submitted. And then now I can see that there's another step, and it's the manager step. And you can see here, this is going to be where I'm able to go in and actually edit the information and add in anything else that might be needed.
And just because I didn't, this was hidden on the actual form that they filled out.
Exactly. Yep. And I actually will go ahead and show you the back end of that in a little bit to show you where there's all the sections already there. We just hide them so that only certain people can see certain sections at certain times. That way it's not like a huge form, someone gets overwhelmed. We keep it really simple for what someone needs to see that pertains to them.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So here is the manager step. For this, we have provided any information you would like to include. So you can just say something like they are an amazing hire. Again, this can be more specific. We again have the ability to add on some things here. If you had a job description, if you wanted to say something, whatever else you might need, you can have it on, add it on this form. So now as the manager, I'm going to say, I just needed to add my notes here about, why we were hiring them. And I'm going to go ahead and click submit form now. So now I know that my task is done here. If you are somebody who's maybe working on a couple different workflows, you can see here all your assigned tasks. So again, we can talk about this in a bit, but if you're going to have maybe 4 or 5 employees that are being hired at a time, you can actually see all of the workflows that you need to do something in at once. And this will be really good, Kyle, when we mention it, some other use cases, like for, more in the higher ed or more in terms of, patient onboarding, like at hospitals, you'll see that this will become really into play when you might have, multiple patients checking in and things like that.
So what are the 2 and the 3 next to those?
Great question. That is going to be the different task numbers that I have. So I have 3 workflows that I need to be working on in here. And with my patient referral workflow, I have 2 tasks that are assigned to me.
I see. Okay. Great. So those are the actual workflows, and then inside of those you have multiple.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Okay.
Absolutely. So now I have this again in the workflow. I have it hard coded now saying, hey, once the new employee onboarding section has been completed and once the manager has completed their information, it needs to go to our HR department. And for this workflow, I have said that that is always the same person. We only have one person in HR that handles new employee onboarding. Now, it can also be conditional, like if, for example, you have it where, hey, based on what I say in this, for who the next person is, you can have it be conditional and go to a certain, person based on a question. For this example, I have it hard coded. I say it always goes to Kate. She's the person in HR who always is handling new hires. So just like before with the manager, as this now HR person, I'm going to get an email letting me know, hey, there's something for you to do in a workflow. So I'll get another email and I'll go ahead and show what that looks like here. And so we can see here now, very similar to before, there's a new step in our workflow demo and it's been assigned to you. So you need to log in and complete it. So as now the HR person, I'm going to go ahead and click into this. And it is going to take me very similarly to the exact same thing we just saw with the workflow demo. However, I can see new employee onboarding. Now you will notice as I scroll down, I can see the manager step, what was completed. And now I have here, this is where I can make edits as this human resources person. So I can go in here and it says, yep, everything looks good. And this has been approved. And then maybe if I want to include any information like, hey, they were a referral from a different employee. So I'm going to put in referral from current employee. And now I know that this is the next step and everything's been completed. If there was something else I needed to do now, I could add that in here and, I could do whatever was needed.
So as we're going through, is every one of these steps an individual trigger like the form submission was in the beginning? Or once you're in the workflow, you're kind of in and there's only the one trigger at the beginning? How do the triggers work throughout the workflow?
That's a great question, Kyle. So as of right now, it is going to be that once you're in the workflow, you are in the workflow. So it will just go through those next steps within the workflow. However, we are coming out with a new kind of feature here in 2022. It's going to be called Copilot. And with that, at each step, so every time you're hitting submit form, you can also trigger that, for example, to send emails, to kind of do other tasks along the process of the workflow. So I'm not there yet, but it's something that's upcoming in 2022. That will be a brand new feature. So again, just enhancing that usability and kind of that user experience moving forward.
Okay, great. So for right now, if you're not using Copilot, it's the initial form submission that can be used as a trigger, and then the workflow completion, can that be used as a trigger as well?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we've got two options for triggers with workflows: the initial form completion and then the workflow completion. With Copilot in 2022, every step along the way can be its own kind of no-code trigger.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Really
and
cool.
So kind of as a workaround right now, what we've seen is you add a workflow step. For example, like you mentioned, we want to send an email to say, hey, we're so excited you're going to be working with us. So we've actually seen that as a workflow step. You add, hey, send email, and you can have that as like a line saying, hey, was in welcome email sent. Then that person knows, hey, I actually need to go send the welcome email. Once they've sent it, they can then click, yes, it was sent. And so kind of as like a checks and kind of a workaround just in the meantime.
Yep. That makes sense. Cool. That's awesome.
Awesome. And then pretty simple here, once this HR representative has entered their information, they're going to be able to go ahead and click submit form. And then once it's actually gone ahead, you'll get another email just letting you know that the workflow has been complete. And then basically that whole workflow process has gone through, been completed, and you're kind of good to go at that point.
Awesome. Can we take a look at what does it look like on the dashboard of if you want to view the workflows that are in progress and
Absolutely.
I'm kind of curious to see. I'm used to the submissions table, and it's very clear that this was submitted, but workflows, because things aren't totally complete, it'll be interesting to see what we've got going on here.
Yep, absolutely. So the cool thing here is, like I said, if you're having multiple things that are going on, you can actually click into each one. So for example, I can go down and now see, hey, this is one that I haven't, adjusted yet. So I need to go in there. Once I've gone ahead and, submitted my information and submit form, once this has been refreshed, you'll notice that it'll actually go away. And it might not right now just because I am the user for multiple steps. Oh, it did actually, so we're good there. So you'll see that now that one has actually gone away because it's been completed. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I can keep looking at this and seeing where I need to be on my next workflow to make sure that I'm not holding anybody up in this workflow process.
And that's a good point right there. You mentioned earlier that this was it works really well with linear processes, right? So
Correct.
This thing happens and then the next is that really the best use case, or are there other situations that are maybe almost like more round robin kind of situation that it works for as well? Do you ever see those kinds of use cases, or is it not?
Yeah, great question. So for the workflows, it really works best in a linear fashion. You can have it go like where, hey, if something is denied, it goes back to step one, for example. So you can have some of that. I wouldn't consider that necessarily like completely round robin, but hey, it's denied by the HR department because they were missing something. It now needs to go back to step one. So we do have that capability, but we don't have the ability quite there to do like, hey, it's going to go to Justin and Kyle at the same time for approval. It does need to move in a linear fashion just to make sure that nothing's missed along that process.
Okay. You had mentioned, and I kind of thought of something. We had a situation at my work the other day where we wanted to have more eyes, more visibility. And as you were talking about like manager approval and whatnot, I started thinking about a scenario, and I don't know if you ever see this where maybe someone comes and they fill out, it's a sales process, they fill out a form on your website to like, yeah, I want to talk to a sales rep. Could you set up the manager, that email, as like a shared inbox? So you've got multiple sales reps that are keeping a track of one inbox. Someone comes in, they fill out a lead, and then we just automatically send it to that shared inbox. And now there's multiple people who have eyes on that, and then they can log in and do the next step.
Absolutely. That is leads me right into it, because we have definitely seen that be utilized, especially if you might have, a few people that might need to kind of monitor it. And it's like a group of, managers that are typically looking at it. You can just set that up as a general inbox, just like you mentioned, a general email. And then that way multiple people could kind of have access to it. We see that a lot of cases, like someone goes on vacation, someone else can have access to it to make sure that nothing's getting left behind. Nothing's like at a standstill, maybe while someone's, trying to enjoy some time off. Things can keep flowing very well. So absolutely, that's something we see quite often.
That's cool. And then you had also mentioned, because this is employee onboarding, but as we talked about with like sales prospects, I could see you had mentioned earlier healthcare, you'd mentioned higher education. I mean, I could see like so many different use cases. Walk me through some other examples of use cases that you see quite frequently.
Absolutely. And the ones you just mentioned are ones that we see all the time, especially now with the current times. Everyone wants to go paperless and make things as efficient as possible, limit time in waiting rooms and things like that. So we have seen a huge increase in this, with hospitals and doctors' offices. So that way, a patient comes in, they're filling out that forms, that first step. So instead of it being new employee onboarding, they're filling out their information about, hey, like, here's my name, here's my symptoms, here's what's going on. Once that has been submitted, then maybe it goes to an admin in the office, because they need to double check insurance information. Then once it's gone through the double check of insurance, then it needs to go to the nurse, who's actually going to say, yes, okay, I see all these symptoms. Here's where questions that I want to make sure I ask. And then maybe after that, it needs to go to the doctor, and the doctor will be able to look at it before actually going in to speak with the patient. So really just limiting a lot of those back and forth nuances, like, oh, we didn't get your insurance information, and now we're having all these issues. That is a pain, for anyone to go through. And so, those workflows are going to help kind of mainstream that type of situation. You mentioned higher ed. We see that all the time, especially with different departments in higher ed, so someone's maybe applying or wanting to change classes, something as simple as that. The student can actually submit the information, hey, here's why I want to change classes, or I need to add or drop classes. You can actually have that conditional logic in the back end saying, hey, if they select English, it goes to the English department. If they select business, it's going to go to the business department. So very much customized on that. And then, hey, after it's been approved by that department head, it needs to go to the dean needs to approve it. And then, it's good to go from there. So a lot of different use cases, really, anytime that you see it kind of needing to go through a bunch of different approvals or processes, then that's something that we can get set up, within the workflows.
I could see it too with like community, like boards or HOAs, or, you're talking about, these approval processes where oftentimes what ends up happening is someone is capturing all the information and then packaging it up in an email and then sending it off to someone else to do their thing. And really what we're doing here is the benefit, the biggest benefit that I see is not only the reaching out to other people, but it's keeping everything in one place.
Absolutely.
So that, you're not losing data. You don't have leaky data. That sounds bad, but leaky data.
It's very true. And I think the thing starting out with a form is super helpful because you can make certain fields required. So then that way, like if you guys notice, hey, like when we have a patient coming in, they're typically never filling out their insurance information. You can make it required. So then that way, in order to submit the form, they have to fill out everything. So then that way, for that next step, you already know you have all the information you need. Again, just continuing to make people more efficient, not having to go back a step, that kind of thing. And so we've seen that be really, really successful in terms of just making sure, like you said, you have all of the data collected, it's all in one spot. You're not having to piecemeal it together from emails, forms, this and that. It's all there together. So then that way you can make efficient and decisions, on a timely manner.
Great. Lastly, in this overview here, can we see the submissions table? Do I just go to it like I would, normally I go to my form and then my submissions. Okay, so I'm in the submissions are all with the form.
Yep. So this is the really cool thing that I like to show. So within the form builder, I would go look at my submissions here. And again, I'll show you the back end of how to build out a workflow in a bit. But really the cool thing here, so these are all our completed workflows. So this is where I've seen everything come in. The cool thing is I can see process time. So for example, I'm noticing, hey, this is taking, days, or it's taking weeks, whatever it is. And I can see how long on average this is taking for people to go through this whole process. So one thing really good there, making sure it's as efficient as possible. If it's taking people, 2 hours, maybe we need to adjust the forms to make it a little bit easier. So some cool information there. Really where I see—
And it is,
go ahead.
Is that the time on form, or is that time from start of form submission till the workflow completion?
Exactly, the second part. So from when the first form is submitted until it has gone through the entire workflow, that is going to be how long it takes. So this would be good for people to understand, like, hey, look, it's typically taking 11 minutes for someone to get through this whole process. We are absolutely crushing it. Like, our employees are getting onboarded within seconds. This is great. The really cool thing, which we can see here, is in progress workflows. So with this, I can see, hey, this has been stuck on step number 2 for an obscene amount of time. What's going on with that department? Are they not getting enough resources? Do they need more training? Do they need something else? Because why is it taking this much time? And why are we still stuck on this step? So very helpful to identify, pain points throughout the process to make sure that you guys are being as efficient and successful as possible.
And also a way for the overall admin to just come and see how many applicants do we have, or how many patients, so you can get a quick snapshot of who all is in the queue.
Absolutely. Yep. And then with this too, if you did want to do some additional, digging and some additional like analytics, you can actually come in here. You can export them in different ways. You can actually, do some custom filters if you want to filter by certain information or certain departments. Basically any question that you've asked on the form, you can then filter by. So again, just a way to look at the information and really delve into it and see maybe, hey, like we see a large uptick in people wanting to switch classes in the English department. Is there a reason for that? Like, do we need to maybe, do some digging there and see maybe why that's happening versus no one ever wants to switch out of business classes? So just, again, some more ways to really make sure that your company or, institution is just being as efficient as possible.
Interesting. Well, this has been a really great overview. Thank you for showing it. I'm excited to dig into how to actually build it, but I think I have a much better understanding, and hopefully everyone watching has a much better understanding of what workflows are, the ways that you can extend the functionality, how, like, kind of the intention behind them, and I think that this is something that can definitely kind of bring everything under one roof and in one process. So thank you very much, Kate, and excited to dig into the workflow in the next video.
Awesome.
Hopefully that tutorial is helpful and you now have a better understanding of what Formstack workflows are, how you can use them in your industry and your business to keep everyone on the same page, keep your data all organized under one roof, and really streamline your processes. So part 2 of this series is coming up next. We've got a deeper dive into how to actually build the workflows inside of Formstack. So we hope to see you at the next tutorial.